On the agenda, we're going to introduce the ARC here on the next slide. They're going to run through some very distinct things that they do. Emily's going to walk through and say this is the kind of clients we serve, this is what we do, and then talk a little bit about why they selected CaseWorthy. I'll go through just 5 or 10 minutes or so of CaseWorthy and talk about who we are, some of the components and things that we have in the system. It'll be very quick because we're here to hear about the ARC today. Just want to set some ground rules so that as some of these questions may pop up about options, you have some of those answers. Then we're going to turn it over to Emily, and she's going to take us through their live database. Now, it's not their production database where they're capturing all their client data. We're going to go through a test and train database, and I went through it with Emily yesterday, and we'll have the opportunity to meet a variety of cats, which are the clients she has programmed into her test and train system. And we'll look at personal supports, their intake workflow, some of the functionality around that particular program. We'll go through incident reportings and incident management, case management features like goals and attendance, and then we're going to go out to their billable revenue report because all of that data we're capturing also needs to drive out to a revenue report so they can understand what they have incoming so that they can manage their business processes, keep their doors open, and keep offering these services to the individuals in their community. And if we're given enough time at the end, we'll run through some of the overall CaseWorthy reporting functions just to give you an idea of the other types of reports that are available to you. But if there is no time at the end of the hour, we'll end it. Now, we are going to record this session as well, so if anybody on the line would like to have a recording, please reach out and we will be happy to send it to you. All right, Emily, you're up.
All right, hi everyone. I'm excited, albeit a little nervous, to be presenting for you today. But I wanted to start off the presentation, like Rhett said, with a little introduction as to who we are and what we do. So our mission is to create opportunities for independence and personal success for people with different abilities in inclusive communities. We focus on providing an array of services to those in the Southern Maryland area with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So we were founded in 1975, and we're affiliated with the state level of the ARC Maryland and at the national level with the ARC of the United States, which is the largest grassroots organization of and for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So we currently operate in the Tri-County area of Calvert, Charles, and St. Mary's, and we have an office in each of those counties that provides different services for the individuals in that area. We also oversee 26 residential homes and 1 respite site across the counties. We serve 370 individuals and employ just about the same amount of staff, which makes us one of the largest employers in the Southern Maryland region. We've been growing rapidly in the past 2 years with ambitious new endeavors into new services, as well as internal strategic planning to align with our core values, which you can see on the screen are acceptance, fulfillment, worth, respect, and joy. If you could go to the next slide, please, Rhett. So I wanted to give you guys a background on personal supports, which is the service we brought online in our first implementation, as well as the services that we're going to be bringing on in our next implementation. So personal supports is a community-based service that is completely customized to the individual. Assistance under this program will include things like daily chores, personal care, transportation, and recreational activities. This service relies heavily on robust reporting for utilization of staffing hours to ensure we're not over or under providing. So our previous system did not allow for any real reporting on that matter, so that was one of the reasons why we ended up looking into a new case management system. And we're actually getting ready to begin our second implementation, and those services that we're going to be bringing online in that second phase is going to be Autism Waiver, which is a brand new service that we have introduced that provides one-on-one services for children with autism to strengthen social skills, learn behavioral management techniques, and more. Pre-employment transition services, which is another new service we're providing, which assists students from ages 12 to 21 in learning social skills, interview etiquette, and exploration of potential career opportunities. We'll also be bringing on our residential support services, which is one of our biggest departments, which provides a safe and supportive living environment for our clients, including 24-hour support and individualized care, as well as promotion of personal growth and community inclusion. We'll be bringing on behavioral support services, which assists individuals coping with situational or medical-related stressors. And some of the services under BSS include psychological consultation, evaluation, and crisis intervention. Respite care, which falls under the umbrella of BSS, provides a short-term temporary care option for families caring for an individual with intellectual developmental disabilities. In addition to those services, we'll also be looking into bringing our facilities management needs online with CaseWorthy, and this is going to be a pretty big endeavor, and it's going to include a robust build-out that will include interactive floor plans of our homes, maintenance requests, fire drills, and inspections. If you could go to the next slide, please. So a little bit of background of what brought us to CaseWorthy. Our partnership with CaseWorthy started in July of 2015 when we wanted to start exploring different management systems to replace our current system, which just didn't meet the needs that we had. Since we're growing so rapidly, we just have so many needs that we need to fill. So we demoed a few different services, CaseWorthy being one, Social Solutions, FamCare, FieldPoint, and Apricot. We ended up going with CaseWorthy for a huge amount of reasons, but some of the most important ones to us were the application is web-based, so you can access it from anywhere that you have an internet connection, models internal workflows, ad hoc reporting and analytics, goal and attendance tracking, integrated document management, HIPAA compliance, configurable dashboards and role views, email and text alert capabilities. So we started our first implementation process with a discovery phase in October of 2015. An implementation specialist traveled to our main office and conducted a thorough investigative process for 3 days to understand our business, the programs that we offer, and what we're expecting from CaseWorthy. We officially began the configuration in January of 2016 with 2 online meetings per week. The implementation specialist was thorough in explaining the features and the capabilities of the system during system administrator training, which was the first phase of the process. Once that was completed, the real fun began, and that's when we started building out the specifics for the program by recreating forms and processes in the system. So Rhett touched on this a little bit, but what the major things that we built out during that implementation phase was the intake workflow, which was created to track all applicants whether they enroll in our services or not. The workflow was designed to capture all of the required information that the admissions committee needs to make decisions on potential clients. For program-specific utilization, we built off the baseline attendance functionality and created a form that would collect the applicable data in relation to the client's daily attendance. We also recreated the internal paper-based goal form so that goals can be tracked easily and reported on within CaseWorthy. We also integrated our incident reporting into CaseWorthy, and we were able to create an exact replica of our internal forms, which includes email notifications, and it increased our accountability and turnover time of the incidents. So we ended up going live with our first implementation August 1st of 2016, and we've had nothing but positive feedback. Everybody seems to love it, and we're looking forward to doing our second implementation. And I am ready to do the live presentation, if you are ready.
You know, I think that's great, and I think we should jump right in there. Give me just 30 seconds to answer some questions that have come in through just a couple of slides, because these questions can be answered very quickly. First of all, Emily, thank you so much. And these kinds of success stories only are believable if they come straight from the mouth of the individual involved, because we've had such a great partnership with the ARC of Southern Maryland, and I really appreciate you being online. Some of the areas you find us, in HMIS, CAPS, obviously developmental disabilities with our ARC partner, emergency utility assistance, HIV/AIDS, workforce job training. Another component that we're going to be bringing on with the ARC of Southern Maryland is our web portal, which is designed to interface to any partners in the community, and all of that data is written to a centralized database in real time. Anything that you ever need to present to them can be presented. Any data you ever need to collect from them, including documents, can be collected as well as automated matching for things like events they may like, jobs that they are automatically matched to, those kinds of functions as well. Now, when it comes to the technology, I'll present it this way. Any device with an internet browser and a web connection can access the entire application, including your phones and tablets, all the way down to our ad hoc reporting engines. Now, some of the differentiators that are going to come into play specifically in this installation with the ARC of Southern Maryland, obviously the app builders are a huge component. They're using them to build out their own forms and workflows and processes. And this next phase of the implementation is a huge cooperative build out where we are taking on some of the build, the ARC is taking on some of the build, and we're really letting them use the tools and us to really minimize the amount of expenditure going into this. But we have document management in place with them, emails and text message alerts based on the escalation of issues. They're using our calendaring system for attendance. We're using signatures and the geocoding where they can designate maps and regions so that they can find the people they serve in exact geographical territories. I don't think we've gotten into scan cards and touchscreen technology, but just wanted to touch on a few of the components that they're using as well. We talked a little bit about the web portal, so I'll just fly right through that. I don't want to use up a bunch of your time. And then Emily really talked us through everything else that I was going to present. So I'm just going to go ahead and close this down and turn this over to you, Emily. Just let me know when you get the presenter invite. Okay, great. And I think you're on mute, Emily, but I can see your screen.
I was on mute. Thankfully, I wasn't talking to myself. All right, so let me just try and get this out of the way. Okay, so we're going to be using our train database, but it looks identical to our production, so we'll go ahead and log in. So the first thing I wanted to show you guys is our intake workflow. So the workflow is a really powerful tool that you guys can use when you do end up using CaseWorthy, and we used it to make a really awesome and easy workflow for our applications. So we're going to go ahead and add a client. It's going to be a little bit of data entry, but I think it's important that you guys can see that we were able to recreate our entire paper application with all of the applicable data, as well as put some logic into the workflow. So I'm going to just type in some stuff here. Now, a lot of these fields are baseline, but we did add some specific ones because they were on our application, like this particular field here. We also added a help text, which is something that's really useful that you can add throughout the system. So if a user is entering this and they're not sure what this field means, you can add a help text to help them. And another thing that we were able to add in the workflow is logic. So if I were to actually change this answer to no or pending, once I get through the rest of this form and save it, it will not allow me to go any further because they are not eligible for our services.
You're so pretty. How you doing?
So one thing that
the last time I was here, you were.
One thing that it does do in the system is it
muted
duplicates. So that helps to make sure that you are not adding the same client multiple times. You can also verify address so that you can get latitude and longitude, which then you can also map it so that you can print out a map of directions from any given point to that particular address, which is really cool. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next step because we've gotten the demographic information that we need. And on our application, we capture the medical assistance number because that is required. And we can also add an entity contact. So we could add a resource coordinator that may have referred them. We can add their parents, anybody who is listed on the form as a contact for them. So this is just what the funding source is, so we know if they're a transfer, if they're coming from a wait list, if they're a brand new applicant. And then this is where we indicate what program they're actually applying for. So that is the entire workflow for an intake, and the end just gives you a little status of everything that you've done. Again, like I mentioned in that first step, if there is any step that requires you to stop and you can't continue the workflow, it will capture that client's information so that if they ever become eligible in the future, they're already in here and we can just update their status. So once they're in there, we have a dashboard for the applicants, and all of these icons are the same the same steps that we just saw in that intake. But one thing that we set up was a document checklist, because there's specific documents that we must have so that the admissions committee can make a proper decision. So we were enrolling them in personal supports, and they were a new admission. So based on that, this is the required document that we must have in order to actually put them through the admissions process. If I were to change it to transfer, then these are the requirements that either we must have or we could have if it's helpful. And then we can easily upload those documents here. And then files, once they're uploaded, are really easily viewable by just clicking View File, and you can just view it right there. So once the admissions committee actually goes through and makes their decision on whether the person is going to actually be accepted into our services, we'll go into their profile from our applications dashboard and update their status. So once we get all of the documents, we can change their status to pending. Once they're approved, we can change it to approved. But once they're ready to be enrolled, we change them to enrolled. We can also generate an acceptance or denial letter from here. And we created a form that will generate from here. And it'll change depending on whether it is an acceptance. So if I were to change it from acceptance to denial, the form will then change to a denial letter. And we can also do the same thing by generating an email. So I'll now go to enrolled, and I will actually enroll them. Oops. I skipped a step. Just ignore this part. So now I will actually enroll them into the program. So this is the most important step because this is where it actually captures all of our service funding and the rates that we need to record. So when we assign a new case manager, we actually have an email alert that we'll send out to the person who's been assigned to them so that they know that their new client has been added so that they can go in there and add any additional information that they need. So this is our service funding plan. So we have for personal supports, we have a pretty big matrix of rates based on the county that they're in, how many units are how many individuals are in the unit, and how many hours per week that they are actually approved for. So there's a lot of hidden logic within this form, and it will calculate everything based on the county, the individuals in the unit, and the hours per week. And that will show up in our revenue report in a second, which you guys will see. And then we can add a case note here as well. We actually added this specifically for our intake coordinator because she really likes to make a lot of case notes on things. So now I will then change their status to enrolled. So once they're completely enrolled, they're pretty much set to go. That ends our intake workflow. So then we're going to switch over to a different view or a different role, which the roles are actually really awesome. They change the views based on what you're doing in the system. So we were in the intake role, which is specifically for our intake coordinator. So all she sees is the applicable information that she needs, that intake workflow, and just some of the dashboard information that she needs. So she has any of the information that she might have on those clients here that she could enter. But if we change to the personal supports role, which is what our direct care staff use, we see a little bit of a different view. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up one of our test clients. And this is the dashboard that they see. We tried to make it as simple as possible. We didn't want to overwhelm them with too many different options. We wanted to just give them everything that they needed right here. So I'm going to show you guys how we enter attendance. It's really easy, and it's the biggest driving factor for personal supports. So we're going to go ahead and go into the time and attendance. And you'll see already that there's some entries in here for this month. We have it filtered so that you can see all of the entries so far this month, and you could change it for any past ones. So we'll go ahead and add an entry for today. So this just records all of the specific information that we have. So based on what the type is, this is how we can bill for this particular attendance type. If they're present for 5 hours, we can bill for that 5 hours. You can also add a case note here if you want to just be a little more specific as to what this attendance note was for. And then we can see our attendance has been added, and we can view case notes just by clicking on the little icon there. So putting in the attendance, which is, again, one of the most important factors for our staff, we've made as easy as possible because we don't want to give them any issues. We want them to have it easily accessible and very smooth process. So the next thing that we have here is the client goals, which is another thing that these staff will enter. So all of the clients will have their own goals, and they'll be entered here. And based on which goal you're working on, you can just click on it and just add documentation to that goal. So I'm going to add documentation to this particular goal here. We also have the ability to add if another individual participated in that activity, because a lot of times we do have group activities. You can then view all goal progress that was added to that particular goal. So these are all the goal documentations for that particular goal. And you can also print out goal documentation. We have resource coordinators coming to the office pretty often, and they do want to see documentation on particular goals for individuals. So we created a report that allows us to easily print out their goals. So, and it's presented really nicely here. You'll see what the goal is, all of the applicable date information, and then the goal documentation attached to that. So the next thing we have here is the incident reports. So this is going to be the first step in our incident report process, which is a pretty big process. So generally our staff are the ones who are involved in the incidents, so they'll come into their dashboard and just go to incident reports. Now here you'll see incidents that have already been added for this client, but that's because I added them. So if a different staff member were to add an incident, you would not be able to see it unless you created it. So that increases the ability to have privacy with different things that are involved with the client. And this is an exact replica of our internal form. So it was not a big change for staff other than just transitioning from paper into electronic form. And you'll notice that there are stars next to each box, so they are required. So because the incident is so important that we get all of the data, we made sure that each of these fields are required so that a staff member couldn't skip it. Now down here we have an assigned to. So this will assign the incident to the next person in the process. So the first step is the initial person who was involved in the incident. The next one is a review by a manager. So by selecting this assigned to, this will actually generate an email to that person so that they know that an incident has been entered into the system. And once I get that email, I will show you what that looks like. But once the staff member has completed their part of the incident report, that's it. But we have, again, a lot more in the process of that. So I'm going to switch roles because we have a role specifically for incident report. And this is for the managers, directors, nurses, anybody who reviews the incident reports, to come here and see everything in one place. So we created this dashboard. These icons up here will show any of the incidents depending on what their category is. So if it's just considered an incident, an internal, or a reportable, they'll all show up here. So I had just sent myself that incident, so I was given an email stating you have an incident report that was assigned to you that you need to log in to complete. So that generates any time anybody is assigned an incident. So depending on if I was the manager, the nurse, the director, or if I was in the QE department, I would go to my applicable icon and complete my section of the incident report. And it's a little bit of a long process, so I'm not going to go through each step, but what I did want to show you is we created our internal investigation in here. So this recreated our internal investigation form, and it is going to be a little bit of data entry, so I apologize for that, but I did want you guys to see what this looks like.
Unmuted. So I know I'm flying through this a little bit, but this is just, again, it's a very in-depth form that we created, and we made it so that it was step-by-step for the person that is doing the internal investigation, so they can go in once it has gone through the entire process and complete this investigation in here. So one other thing, too, is if I were going in to do the internal investigation, I look at this and I'm like, I don't really remember what this incident is. You can actually view the entire incident from just going off the action gear and going to the internal incident or the initial incident. Once the internal investigation has been done, we actually have another step, the standing committee review. So we have a group of people that review all of our incident reports, and they will do their applicable section up here. And they will also assign requested actions. So depending on what this incident was, they might recommend med refresher, a delegation removal, disciplinary action. And they can assign this to the manager that needs to get it completed, to the staff member that it's applicable to, when it's due, when it will actually due, when they need to report to the standing committee on the findings, and they can also create an email letting the manager know that that a requested action for that incident
has been entered in there. So we actually had initially only brought this online for personal supports, but personal supports liked it so much, and the standing committee liked the whole process so much that we brought residential on last month, and they've really liked it. The process has been great, and the accountability has really, really increased with getting the incidents turned over faster. So we're actually going to be bringing the rest of our departments on for incident reports next month. So hopefully by the end of February we'll have everybody in here, and everybody likes it so much that it just really has worked for us in as far as increasing our accountability with our incident reports. So I wanted to show you guys the revenue report, which goes back to my point of the billing. So our personal supports, again, is based very strongly on our billing. So all of our individuals have specific rates and specific hours that they are allotted. And it was really important to us to be able to track what our utilization is. So we created a revenue report that shows us all of our clients, all of the applicable service funding plan information, as well as what the potential revenue is, what their utilization rate would be. And this pretty much just helps us determine if we are over-serving our clients, if we're under-serving our clients, and where we need to realign our staffing. So it was a really robust report, and it has a lot of logic behind it, and we're actually adding some additional options so that we can track other types of attendance, because we're only right now checking whether the present hours and what the utilization is on there, but we want to also see what the utilization we're losing for vacation or refusals or things like that. So this has helped us tremendously with keeping track of the billing in terms of personal supports. So that was the gist of pretty much everything I wanted to show you guys today as far as what we built into the system. And we have a lot more coming down, hopefully starting next month. So.
Yes, thank you, Emily. And you know, these guys are a fantastic partner. As you can see, not only do they take what they do internally very seriously, but they are now very forward-thinking in the idea of how do they interface with their community. And so one of the next components is going to be brought live through the portal, where individual agencies are allowed to make referrals directly into their application through the web portal. And again, you start thinking about things like time poverty, allocation of resources, and doing self-intakes, referrals from agencies coming directly in through a web portal rather than a paper form that then has to be entered in a system. They're just thinking very, very smart, very business savvy in terms of how they grow their programs. And Emily, you guys are fantastic partners. Thank you so much. I think what we'll do now, and you know, interrupt me, Emily, if you had something else you wanted to show, is just kind of run through on my side just some of the report offering. Does that seem like a good place to go, Emily?
Yeah, definitely. Just one thing I wanted to just interject is, again, we only brought one program online, but different managers and directors had heard about the success so much that they are ready and they're excited to move into the system. Like I said, we have brought almost everybody online with the incident reports, and everybody's just really excited to bring everything else online. So that's not always something you hear when you're implementing new systems, so that's something definitely that we're excited about.
Absolutely, and I guess maybe just you know, for 30 seconds, I know you spoke to it, but in terms of your job as a system admin, can you kind of describe how that's changed between CaseWorthy and the system that you used to operate?
Sure. The system that we previously operated, and we're still using a little bit until it's completely phased out, was server-based. So there was a lot of limited things that we could do because it wasn't actually our system. We contracted it from another agency, so we couldn't make any adjustments to the dashboards. We couldn't customize it to our end. With CaseWorthy and being the system admin for CaseWorthy, I'm able to customize pretty much any of the dashboards. I can make things read differently, I can make it look differently. The forms can be exactly how we want it. So it's not just, here's what you have, make it work. It's, making it work for us. One of the things that I've really liked, too, being the system admin is you don't have to be a database expert to learn how to do any of the configurations or the customizations. You learn it in the implementation process, and it's really, really user-friendly. It's honestly made my life a lot easier because it is so user-friendly, and we're able to put those help texts in there and those prompts in there, and staff just really enjoy it a lot more. We're getting a lot better reception from our staff, and we're also getting a lot of return on investment as far as being able to track our utilization, being able to increase our accountability with making sure things are recorded. So it's really been awesome bringing this online.
Thank you, Emily. And again, that almost sounds too good to be true. So I'm glad you're here to say it.
It's for real.
I'm just going to make myself the presenter here, and I'm going to share my screen. And we'll just run through, more than anything, just different types of reporting that CaseWorthy offers, and then we'll just kind of close out at that point. Now, Emily, just before I forget to mention this, Emily has agreed to make herself available to field any direct calls for questions, for concerns that anyone on this presentation may have. And so if you would like Emily's contact information, please reach out to us, and we'll provide that to you on a one-by-one basis rather than presenting it over the web for everyone to have. But if you do, please respond to that email that you received to invite you to this webinar, and we'll receive that, we'll respond, be able to provide you with Emily's contact info to ask her direct questions as part of this process. Now, the kinds of reporting that I like to talk about, because we're so flexible, I never want it to be we offer this one report or this one report. I want you to start thinking universally as more of the types of reports that we offer, so that you can start thinking about, oh, the dream scenario would be this, or my dream scenario would be that, because our tools allow us to configure this. And so the first form is dashboard reporting, and everything from just a basic client dashboard report where it shows charts and finances over time, those kinds of things. We have thousands of different styles of reports that can be brought in, and you can turn on and turn off these different various data elements. You can interact with them. Looking at this based on gender and age. And if we look at this, there's difference in distance to header, size of the chart. Everything here is configurable. Everything that displays, the colors, the patterns, the type of chart. But the idea is that you can drill down to the exact specific information that you need to view at a moment's notice. And with another component of the system is obviously the tool set that you can configure, and that's what we've trained Emily on, and that's why she's able to do everything that we can do. And we train every system administrator on the full use and scope of the tools so that they can do anything internally that we can do for them as well. And that includes our reports and any of our queries that you can start with as a basis. But with the tools, we can say internally, when I drill in, I want to see these 8, 7 data fields. But when I export it to Excel, I want to be able to see these 30 data fields about the client. So it's all configured based on the type of drill down, the type of customization that you want to see of your information. Now, that's one form of reporting, and we have 3 others. And the easiest one to show you is really this clients in program. This is a type of form. It's a search form. And if we wanted to, in a matter of 30 seconds, we could add a field here. But all this is saying is everyone as of this date in these programs at this provider or location, these labels change based on your needs, who is currently enrolled. Click search. We get our list, and again, we can send this out to Excel. So again, just making data very accessible to you. These are very, very high-level forms of reporting. The fun ones are the last 2 I'm going to show you, which first of all is the SSRS reports, because we can do parent reports and sub-reports where we're able to attach information behind a summary report. And so I've just got a demo template pulled up here, and we've got just wide open parameters, and that way I can show you the scope of this report. This report is programmed in SSRS, and it's pulling data across our system for the entire year. And what we see is we have the title of the report, who ran it, all the way down to the date, time, second of the report, the parameters, a nice little comparison of the top Now we do have the ability to embed interactive reports just like on the dashboard, interactive charts rather, like you would see on our dashboards as part of this. But we have 9 pages of these various services that have been received, and as you can see we have the number of entries that happen, total number of units of service, dollar, the clients, families, adults, children, seniors that were served. But if we want to look at these bed nights, we have a nice sub-report underneath these that allows us to drill into this information. And it's one of our brands here at CaseWorthy that would provide you with the summary data, or rather the backup data on the summary report so that you can quickly audit it. For instance, our average service is $1, and if you wanted to be able to audit these, you can quickly sort these in any way, look at different, the provider that maybe provided the services, who authorized it. Those kinds of questions can be very quickly answered with this style of reporting. Now, another cool feature to automate your processes and save you time is the ability to schedule reports. And so if I wanted to schedule this as my weekly service report, all I would do is label it. I would pick the team that it distributes to. So every user in the system is mapped to a team or series of teams depending on their position. But if we had an executive team, we would select them. We pick a template that we want it to be, and obviously you would probably have your weekly services template. And the templates work just like the case note templates that Emily showed during the demonstration. They automatically pull in any information from the database as needed into placeholders, almost like a mail merge function. But they also can include images, tables, anything that you need them to. Select the format. So this is our weekly service report, so the frequency is going to be weeks. Let's go ahead and start it fresh on next Monday at 12 a.m. And we'll leave the end date open so that it continues to run until we shut this down or click this disable button. But we click the beginning of last week to the end of last week, and then you can set your parameters and click save. But the neat thing is now every single person on that team every Monday at 12 a.m. gets last week's information automatically menued up for them to be able to view. Now, the final form of reporting that I want to talk about is our ad hoc reporting tool, or the CaseWorthy Analytics tool. And the easiest way to present this is to pull up a demo scenario. And so I'm just going to do that really quickly. And the demo scenario for today is you receive the following email from your executive director. I need to know the sum of services and count of services provided to men aged 18 through 50 who've received services through the following programs. This information also needs to be sortable by service type. And it's neat because I get everything from tears to laughter when I present that, because some people cry thinking that they're going to have to spend 2 months compiling the data, and some people laugh because it's an absurd request and they'd never be able to do it. But what's important to understand is that through the ad hoc reporting tool, everything is customizable. So what we've done is we've linked everything that's service related in the database to one query. And so what I'll do is I'll open up this one query. And this displays data in a pivot table format so that it's easily sortable and configurable. So in our scenario, we needed to know the count of services and sum of services. We had specific programs that we needed to bring in, so I'll pull up the program name. We need to bring in the service type, so I'll put that under program so that it's sortable. And we also had some filters, so we needed to do a filter based on age and a filter based on gender. So I'll pull that over here, click OK. Now, these can be attached to launch forms so you can be very specific and sort a lot of this stuff before you even launch the analytic piece. But I want to show you how versatile it is, so that's why we're keeping it so open in this scenario. Now, we have 140-something programs here for 40,000 services that equal $11 million worth, well, almost $12 million worth of services. So what we need to do first is we need to pare it down to just the specific programs that we, I believe, yes, those are the 3 that had been requested. And so now, as you can see, our totals update. And as we apply the filters, they'll continue to refine, 18 to 30, 31 to 50, so we're getting that full age range. And then we'll apply for just the male individuals per the request. And as you can see, these totals update with us as we go. So now we have 5,000 services equaling $239,000. And then as we expand each of these, we're able to see the service, or the sum of services and count of services for each service type underneath each program. There's some fun components, like we can expand them all so you're viewing all of them, collapse them all. If you wanted to bring in the individual client name, you would just drag that underneath perhaps the service type, so you could drill down all the way to the individual who received the service or the user who authorized it. But this is just one way to look at data in this grid format. Another way would be to switch over to a chart view. For instance, if we wanted to view everything in a pie chart. And you can turn on and turn off these different data elements to see the individual services underneath each one. Maybe we want to see the programs for these 2, but the services for the other one. I mean, you decide how these break out and break down and lay out, and you can switch between the count of services and the sum of services, and that's just one chart we've selected to bring in, but there's obviously several others here, as well as tons of others that can be brought in. And then, as always, with every report that we offer, we have a series of export options so that you can export this data, you can share this data, you can save this and menu it up for your end users to view, and then also with the ad hoc report, you can schedule it. But the neater thing is that this is no longer limited on a database side so that only your database users can see this kind of tool. We actually bring it directly into the interface of the application so that if you're talking about services with a client or anything with a client, now you have the ability to use the ad hoc reporting tool to refine data directly against a client record. So we're looking at all the services that my client Mitch Rapp has received year by year, and we can actually go program by program and then look at the individual service underneath each one and the year that it was allocated. And if we wanted to refine how this was displayed, we could switch any of these around, pull in any other components that we need to. But another neat thing is that in real time, if you have to add a field, so let's say that you get a new funder and they want you to start collecting eye color on everyone you do an intake on. As soon as you add eye color to your database, it's now sortable to any of these ad hoc reports that have that table attached to it. So in real time, everything automatically updates and feeds. It's a pretty amazing feature. And that really rounds out what we wanted to present to you today. And again, Emily, I know you're out there. I just want to say thank you so much. And thanks to everyone who attended and is on the line with us today. Please reach out if you want to speak to Emily directly or if you have any other questions. But what do you say, Emily? Should we go ahead and wrap it up?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
All righty. Well, thanks, everybody, and we'll be in touch soon. Thanks, Emily. Have a great day.
Thank you.